You know what the number one thing that everybody who's in charge of our government right now doesn't want to happen in 2024? They don't want it to crash on their watch. And so you're going to see all of the big guns come out this year, and we're already starting to see one of them right now. And I want to thank a couple of my viewers for sending over this story to me. Alan and Jonathan both sent me the same story. It's about this new credit for low-income home buyers. This is a credit that's going to be coming from Freddy Mac, and basically it's geared towards getting people who can barely afford a house or not even really afford a house at all into a home, guys. And that's what most of these home buyer programs are geared towards. They're geared towards, getting people that don't have the income to basically close on the house. They don't even have enough money saved for the closing costs, and they want to help people out with that. And the idea with this is, let's keep as many people out there potentially buying homes as possible. And last year, we saw the introduction of the 1% down mortgage with Rocket Mortgage and United Wholesale, and then later down the road, Zillow jumped on that bandwagon as well, because these guys are trying to do things to make people buy houses when they normally wouldn't, guys. Just like people get all these subsidies and the tax credits for buying the electric vehicles, because so many people don't actually want to buy them, they have to give people goodies and incentives to actually go out there and get one. Here we have a house for rent for $11,500 a month, but this house has a rap sheet longer than a California criminal, guys. Take a look at this. It's too much to even go over. They've tried selling and renting this house so many times for so many different prices, it's not even funny. And as a general rule of thumb, as a home buyer, if you look at a property's history and you see this, that's generally not a good sign, because they're playing a lot of games with a property like this, and you just don't know if you can trust the seller. You don't know what they're up to with this, but doesn't mean you can't buy it. Just means review that history carefully to see what they were doing during this time and how much they could really rent the house for and how much it sold for and this and that. Property tax bill here is like $21,000 a year, and yep, it's just not moving. They haven't really rented it or sold it or really done anything with this house since they bought it in 2014. They've tried 1,000 times, as you can tell, but nothing has happened. And so it's the same thing when it comes to buying a house. They want people out there buying houses. That's where this new closing cost credit is coming from. This is going to be available starting March 1st. So in less than a month from now, this will be out there. And in order to get it, you need to be earning 50% or less of the area's median income. It can be used towards anything, like a closing cost. It can be used towards your down payment. It can be used towards the PMI, whatever. And they're saying this is going to help so many people because in 2023, Freddie Mac backed 800,000 mortgages, and of those 800,000, 51% of them were first-time home buyers. So obviously what they're trying to do is they want to get people who are inexperienced and don't have a lot of money to become a homeowner. That is the goal with all of these down payment assistance programs, unfortunately. And let's take a look at a quote from Freddie Mac. They say that this new effort continues the progress we made in 2023 and is particularly important in today's housing market, where elevated rates and low supply have created affordability challenges for many families. We look forward to announcing additional ways to support low-income borrowers in the months ahead. They said it themselves right here. We're looking for additional ways to support the low-income borrower. In other words, we need to get as many people out there to buy a house this year, even if you can't afford it, because it's an election year and we need to make it look like we're winning. That's what this is. Now, I don't know for sure that's what it is, but I wasn't born yesterday. I think a lot of people out there would agree that this is to help the politicians, so that way it doesn't crash on their watch. And the thing that I just can never understand about these programs, guys, is it says here that these programs are to make homeownership more attainable for low-income families. So my first thought when I saw this was, well, $2,500 really isn't that much money, not even if you're renting, let alone becoming a homeowner. So what kind of property are you buying if your income level is 50% below the median in your area? I mean, think about it. Most areas across the country, median income in any given area is maybe what, $55,000 a year, roughly, probably? So if you're making 50% of that, say you're making $27,500 a year, are you going to be able to afford a house, guys? Really? That's the thing I'm concerned about with it. I'm just worried that when programs like this get people into houses, all it really does is it puts them in a situation that they really can't afford, and they end up losing the house, which destroys their credit, potentially puts them through a bankruptcy, or if they, even worse, if they have a foreclosure on their record, you know, that destroys their financial future for the next 7 years. So I, for one, am extremely skeptical when I hear of programs like this that are supposedly there to be able to help low-income borrowers. Like, yeah, you might get people who are low income into a house, but can they really afford that house? You know, that's the big thing. Because if they don't have $2,500 to put towards closing costs, no offense, but you shouldn't be buying a house. I mean, when push comes to shove and you actually move into that house, it'll cost more than $2,500 just to fix your water heater, guys. So it's going to be very expensive to be a homeowner for somebody like that just doesn't have the income to keep up with the ongoing expenses, let alone all the other things that are going up right now with homeowners insurance going out of control, the property tax increases that people are getting. Like, how is somebody making let's say $30,000 a year going to afford that? No. Now, speaking of insurance, there is a new proposed bill here in Florida about homeowners insurance, and what they want to do is they want to make it so that insurance companies are required to offer policies that cover only the unpaid principal on a mortgage instead of the traditional replacement value of a home and the value of the land it sits on. So essentially, let's say you have a house that's worth $500,000 here in Florida, which is probably pretty realistic basically everywhere, all right? And you owe $400,000 on the house. Well, in that case, you would have insurance only for that $400,000, and if there's a total loss or a catastrophe, your lender will get paid off, but you will have no money left to rebuild the house or anything like that. You're just going to be stuck with an empty lot. That's it. And obviously the whole reason they want this is so that, you know, people can have lower insurance premiums. And for example, one of the big problems we're having is when you have a mortgage, you have to have insurance, right? But if you're not able to get insurance because nobody wants to write a policy for you, then this would be a way to get more insurance companies to write a policy, because they just have to pay off the mortgage in case something happens. That's it. And the idea is it's going to lower people's premiums. It's like, yeah, it's going to lower premiums, but no one's going to have any actual coverage, guys. This is comparable to having the forced place coverage that your mortgage servicer will put into place if you don't pay for your own homeowner's insurance policy. Like, this has no benefit to you as the homeowner, but you're going to be the one paying for it. Why would anybody do this? I don't understand why anyone in the world would sign up for a homeowner's insurance policy like this. And if you get one of these policies, you'll be required to sign off on this following statement. It says, you are electing to purchase coverage at a limit that is equal to only the unpaid principal balance of the mortgage loans on your home. Accordingly, in the event of the total loss of your home, or a loss for which the cost to repair your home exceeds the unpaid balance on your mortgage loan, you will incur significant financial losses, including the potential loss of some of your home's equity. Once again, why would anybody in their right mind sign up for a homeowner's insurance policy like this? I can't think of one good reason, guys, because this benefits you zero and benefits the mortgage lender 100%. The only situation that I think that this could serve a purpose in is, say for example, you can't get coverage with anybody else, right? And your mortgage servicer puts a forced place policy on your home that basically has the same coverage amounts here. That's just going to cover the unpaid balance on the mortgage, and that's it. You're not going to get anything else out of it on your side of the deal. So in the event that that's the only type of coverage that you can get, then it might make sense to sign up for a policy like this if it's at least cheaper than the forced place policy. But that is the only situation that I could see this making a lick of sense. And what this does is they're just putting yet another Band-Aid over a gushing wound that we have here in Florida, which is that nobody wants to write insurance here. And they actually talked to an insurance broker in this story to see what he thinks about it. He says he thinks this isn't going to do much for the state of Florida, just like I agree with him actually. You know, in Florida where you have hurricanes or wildfires that can destroy your house completely, I think it would put people in a bad position. It's going to put people in the position where they could lose 50 grand to 200 grand or more in some cases, where they can't rebuild the same house. So they're going to have to downsize, and for a lot of people that's not going to be an option. And he says if this whole thing passes, he probably won't be recommending this to clients. So hopefully that's true. Hopefully they're not going to be trying to sell people these policies. And you know what the worst part is about all this? Is there's talk that if this passes and people get these insurance policies, then your lender still might be able to put a forced place insurance policy on your behalf, even if you have this type of insurance, because they might deem it to be insufficient. So you could end up actually paying way more for basically no coverage for you if you end up opting to get this insurance, guys. So once again, what these people are thinking and why do this, I have no idea. To me, it sounds like a big play to help the insurance companies, you know, because the insurance companies will start writing these Mickey Mouse policies that don't cover you, still charge you a hefty premium, and then in the event there is a disaster, they don't have to do a full payout. So this sounds like a big handout to the insurance industry, if you ask me. So shame on our Florida leaders if they pass this. This is not going to be good for anybody here in Florida. I mean, if you have a different opinion on this, guys, let us know in the comments. But my first glance at this doesn't look like anything good for the people here in Florida. And you know, one other big problem with the real estate industry right now, besides insurance, besides all the rising costs of becoming a homeowner, is people's just sheer desperation, guys. And unfortunately, people in the millennial generation, which is my generation, are the most guilty of this right now, which makes sense because we're the largest generation outside of the baby boomers, and most of us are at home buying age right now that want to become a homeowner if you're not one already. The problem is millennials don't have a clue about real estate and how all this works and what they should be doing. Because when you look at some of the answers that they put together from this millennial survey regarding the housing market and real estate, it is just shocking how uneducated people are, guys. Because take a look at this. Let me give you some examples. About 96% of millennials said that high interest rates are affecting their home buying plans. As a result, they're looking at smaller, less expensive homes or holding off on buying altogether. Half of millennials said high interest rates are a barrier to home ownership. And 2/3 of millennials regret not purchasing a home when rates were lower. So once again, their eye is not on the ball. Their eye is on the interest rates, because 96% of them, which is basically all of them, say that high interest rates are affecting their ability to buy a home. Really? So you don't think the price matters, guys? Come on, wake up. We're all in our 30s now, or you should be close to that amount if you're in your millennials. Some of them are in 40s already. Like, wake up. This is not true, guys. The interest rate doesn't matter. The purchase price of the home matters tremendously. Are you telling me if the average house still costs $250,000, you wouldn't buy it because you had to pay an 8% mortgage rate? I think not. This percentage of millennials that think that interest rates are the problem just goes to show how much ignorance there is surrounding still out there when it comes to buying real estate, that they think that's the problem and not the actual home price themselves. Newsflash, guys, they could lower interest rates to 0 tomorrow, and I'll bet you still half of the millennials out there still wouldn't be able to afford to buy a house at these prices. So that's the wake-up call people need to understand. And go do it for yourself. Go to any mortgage calculator and type in all of the financial information for the house and put your mortgage interest rate at 0% and see what your payment would be. I guarantee it'll still be more expensive than what a lot of people could afford at today's prices. Here's the next problem with millennials' thought process on this. Many of them want to become homeowners at any price. More than 75% of millennials say they would consider an interest rate higher than 7%, and 79% said that they'd be willing to pay above asking price for any property just to get into a house. Some of them even said they would be willing to pay as much as $100,000 over asking price. You would have to be a complete fool to do that right now, guys. I don't care where you live or how hot the market is. That would be a huge mistake right now. we're on the precipice of things turning around, and anybody who's out there paying over asking price for a house right now is an idiot. I'm sorry, it's just not a smart decision. Houses have already gone up so far beyond what they're actually worth, and people who are paying over asking price in 2024 are going to be the ones left holding the bag. Here's the next problem with millennials' thought process. They are too desperate, as if you can't tell already based on the things that we just talked about. But listen to this, 90% of millennials who recently purchased a home have regrets about their purchase, guys. On some level, there's something about it that they wish they would have done differently. That's almost everybody. Why? Because people are out there making stupid decisions like this. You know, people are jumping in way over their head, still trying to pay over asking price, or getting themselves into a fixer-upper that they have no idea how much money it's actually going to cost because it's the cheapest house in the area they like, and then they're stuck with this huge project that they can't complete. And basically, they are just buying the house now and worrying about it later, which I can't think of a worse way to go about buying real estate, guys. If you want a lesson on exactly what not to do when it comes to buying a house, this is it right here. It's a surefire way to have regrets by jumping into a place just to get anything, just to get your hands on any house right now, which I think is the worst mistake that people can make. And just to show you how desperate some of these people are, 62% of millennials say they would buy a home with mold, and 58% say they would buy a home that needs a new foundation, and 62% said that they would buy a house that has asbestos in it. So these are basically tear down properties, okay, that they're willing to buy to get into a house right now. Well, why is that a problem? Because even though they're willing to go through all these hoops and loops to get into a property, they can't afford it, guys, because 57% of millennials have about $10,000 in debt right now, and only 25% of millennials have $10,000 in savings right now. So that means only the top 25% only have 10 grand, guys. That is not a lot of money to have when you're a homeowner. Just like we were talking to our point earlier, if you don't have 2,500 bucks, you can't afford to be a homeowner, guys. That's the reality. But millennials who think they're gonna buy, you know, this fixer-upper house and they have 10 grand in the bank, like, who are you kidding, guys? Like, just the supplies alone that you're gonna need to fix that house is gonna cost far beyond what you have in the bank. Oh, what are you gonna do? You're gonna take a home equity loan right away, thinking you're gonna have equity? Are you going to put it all on the credit cards and just YOLO into this house? Like, what is the plan? I mean, all of this, I'm sorry guys, just sounds really stupid. So what do you do instead? You need to plan ahead, guys. You need to make a path towards homeownership that's gonna be sustainable for you. You need to get out of this debt. You need to have more money in saving. And yes, of course, you can take advantage of some of these down payment assistance programs that are out there, just like the one we talked about here. But I would be really analyzing your situation and thinking like, okay, am I really in the position to buy a house if I need all these assistance programs to get into one? I'm not saying it's bad to take it. There's no shame in taking the money if you can get it, guys. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is you shouldn't need that money to be able to get into the house. If that's the case, then that's probably a pretty good sign you actually can't afford it. And the other thing that everybody needs to be thinking about is if you can't barely afford it right now, when it's time to get into the property, how is it going to be in a couple of years from now when your property taxes do go up, when your homeowner's insurance premiums do go up, and more repairs come up on the house? How are you going to be able to afford those increasing expenses when you become a homeowner, guys, if you can barely make it right now? That's another thing that everybody who wants to buy should be asking themselves. The homeowner's insurance goes nowhere but up. The HOA fees, if you have one, goes nowhere but up. Property taxes goes nowhere but up, unless your property values are plummeting in your neighborhood. There was an interview with a 24-year-old who bought a house to do house hacking and was able to actually turn a profit on this house in order to get his first house at 24 years old. So obviously he's a Gen Zer and he's doing good at 24 years old, has a house that's cash flowing as a house hacker, which I think is really smart. And honestly, I think is one of the best ways for young people to get on the housing market ladder, guys. If you know for a fact you want to become a homeowner or a landlord or whatever, this is the best way. Get into a house hacking situation where you have tenants paying for your house and you're living for free essentially, which is a wonderful deal. And this usually works when you're younger and on the single side of things. Or if you are younger and you're not single and you're wanting to get married and all of this, you know, hopefully you're marrying somebody that brings something to the table. Whether it's a man or a woman, doesn't matter. They need to be pulling their own weight, guys. If they're not bringing in, you know, income to the situation to help you guys move forward in life, then that should be a red flag for you as well. But that's the other way to do it. If you are a young couple, you could put your incomes together to become a homeowner together, but that's assuming things are going to work out, and sometimes doesn't always work out, but it's a risk you take. But they asked this 24-year-old kid what his advice was for any first-time home buyers that are trying to get on the ladder. And he says, buy what you can. A lot of us want or expect to have a nice house, a nice neighborhood, and all of that, but those homes can be out of reach. If you can tolerate living somewhere that doesn't quite match your ideals, get something that's a little below what you'd hope for. Soon enough, the next home you buy will be your dream house. Now, I only think that's half true, guys, and let me tell you why. That's good advice if you do what this kid did and get into a house hacking situation, because of a couple different reasons. Number one, you're getting your foot in the door with real estate, but you're not overextending yourself financially to do it. You have tenants that live with you that are paying off your house on your behalf, and if you're working and have a good job, you can save a lot of your income. When the time comes, you sell that house and then you can move up to your dream house like he said. But if you're somebody that's on the other end of the spectrum and you're just moving into a house and barely can afford it and need all these down payment assistance programs to get into it and are struggling once you're in, that's not the way to do this, okay? That's not the time to just buy what you can. I see people in the comments say all the time, like, oh, I don't know how young people are gonna get on the housing ladder with all this going on. Well, this is the way, guys, and unfortunately, it's not the traditional way. This is not the way our parents did it. Our parents didn't have to house hack to get into their first house. They were luckier than us. But if it's something that you wanna do, then I think it's worth pursuing. Or buying a house with somebody you know you can trust and you have two incomes that can support owning that house, guys. But just because it sounds good doesn't mean it's easy. Like, being a landlord is tough. You're going to be having to manage the tenants that live with you. That's not an easy situation to deal with. You're going to still be dealing with maintenance on the house, and you can't be renting to your friends either, because that's the easiest way to say, oh, I'll pay you next month, right? So you got to make sure that you are renting to serious people that can actually afford to pay rent to you. And unfortunately, the younger you are, the more naive you are, and the less experience you have, or probably have no experience at all with real estate or renting anything to anybody. And you got to be careful, guys. But I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying you need to find the right setup like this kid did. And I think that's a green light to move forward. If you're broke and can barely afford the down payment or closing costs, that's the red light to slow down and say, maybe we need to put some more planning into this. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.